Hello, welcome back to Jordan's Mix Vlogs. Today we're doing analysis of the mix that I did for a duo called HAITEKU. This is their song Stop Stop. As far as production goes in this song, it's 80%, 90% HAITEKU boys, and I added my own little section towards the end and mixed it. And the channels that we have in groups, we have the sidechain, bass channel, drums, and I've separated the bass and the drums from each other, even though this bass could go into the synth range, but just to process them differently, essentially, have more control over the levels, and we have drums, synths, Atom ARP, which Atom is an alias I go by, so this section is essentially just things that I've added. Another resampled synth, and more vocals and effects. So at the top we have the sidechain, which you can see it's it's a very sharp kick, very short with a lot of high end taken out of it, and that way it just sounds more cleaner in the mix, and gives a more edgy pulse to it when it is being put into the compressor for sidechaining. Moving down to the bass, we have some EQing. I've chosen the sections that sound the best in it, and just dipped out just over 100 hertz. That being because the kick in this mix is most dominant at the 100 hertz mark. So I just dipped that out a little bit to let that kick bleed through some more. And in the off sections, you can see that I've gotten rid of a lot of the low end, just so that pulse of the beat of the bass line itself is still there, but it's not carrying the song anymore. And multiband dynamics, which is essentially three compressors which are isolated in frequency ranges. You've got your high frequencies, mid frequencies, and low frequencies. And I have boosted the high frequencies, the mid-range frequencies of everything over negative 34.8 decibels, just to better balance and level with the low end frequencies. So if I play this, now they're more even, and even then the mid range is a little bit louder, just better balancing. And for this filter here, you can see that it only comes in the breakdowns, in the builds, and again that's just to keep this aspect of the song still present but not carrying it. And towards the end of the builds, I sweep the filter back down just to reintroduce it subtly, give that sense of movement. Cool. And this saturator, at first when I did mix it, I did put it in parallel with a dry and wet chain, but then I figured I didn't need to, and just saturated it as being what it was, around the 1K mark, a slight boost, and not completely wet. Could take it out of this group, probably should, but coulda, shoulda, woulda. The mix is done, so we'll move on. And then another EQ after all of this, EQ'd the bass of just below 100, because through all the effects that I've run it to after being EQ'd here with the multi-compressor and the filter and the saturation, it's now a lot more mid-heavy, so I didn't need too much of that low end because it still carries. And sidechain, very heavily sidechained, but very low ratio, so it's not adjusting the levels too much, which is good. And a tuner, just to help tune the drums, help tune it to the mix, sorry. In the drum channel, just a simple EQ, again, no automation, and slight saturation just to beef up the mix a little bit. With the kick, so this group has a kick and a sub bass to it, and in the kick channel, just taken out that prominent range due to the vocals being in this area, so I just dipped it out. I liked the little click that is at the top of this, so I kept it in there, and some pretty wonky multi-band compression going on here, but that was just touch and go, trial and error, playing around with it, seeing what sounded good. And the same filter technique for the breaks is being used. Let's see. Yeah, you can see that it's activated in the breakdowns just to keep that kick there, but getting rid of some low end. Some bit of glue compression just to better hold all these effects together. And another EQ right at the end, just to further EQ the output signal after running through all of these channels. For this sub bass here, which is actually a sample of a tom drum, which I like, the HAITEKU boys did this themselves, and I liked the use of that. Instead of using a traditional sub bass, they used a tom drum, a mid-range tom drum. It did need to be transposed to put it in tune with the kick itself, which I think everything in this got it as close as I could with in the fine tuning. I think that the whole scale of this song is in F, so I needed that to be around there. The hi-hats got a ride here, which comes in certain sections just to help carry on and help push the hi-hats themselves, give a better sense of motion and flow. You can see everything has been reduced in level by a fair bit, give me more room to work with these levels. Not too much EQing, maybe a little bit of fading towards the end, yeah, help it come in more. And a fade to grey, which is just a delay and a reverb together that works simultaneously through this pot, which as it moves, which gives a really good washed out effect when it comes in. So for example, that is, so it just helps blend everything as the climax is coming, and quite heavily side chained to that channel, but it can be due to how quiet and small and sharp the kick that is being used in the sidechain is. Some standard EQing and sidechain compression on the hi-hats, you know, once again just finding the frequencies that don't need to be there and the ones that do need to be there and just picking them out myself. Once again, simple EQing. Nothing over the top, you know, more is less, definitely. Okay, this is a technique that I soon learnt isn't as effective as I thought it was, and that's thanks to Guy Gray. He told me of a stereo delay effect that you can do that emulates this better. So essentially what I've done here is I've duplicated the same track and just panned it left and right. I thought I offset them a little bit, which is what I was supposed to do, but it doesn't seem like I have, so that definitely is a complete waste of time because all it's doing is duplicating the sound, making it double the volume, and panning it left and right, just, it really doesn't do anything. So looking back on that now, that's definitely something I could change, these pot claps. But the other effects, yeah, again, standard reverb, the clap coming in, could have low cut it, but there wasn't too much low end coming in from the sample itself anyway, so I wasn't too fussed. Natural diffusion, just diffusing the high frequencies coming in because high frequency travels less distance. Heavy density, so it bleeds through in the mix more. You can hear the tail of the reverb more. Not much decay time though. But it's in a large room. It is in a large room. The size is quite big, but the decay time's not. So giving that the space of the atmosphere that you're in, whilst also seeming close to the microphone. And yeah, standard EQing again. I really should fix that, but again, the mix is finished, so we'll move on. You live and you learn. With these pot claps here, these are just phone recordings that I took of me tapping a bunch of ceramic pots with different items and I put them into a simpler, sliced them up, changed the sensitivity, and just used a MIDI keyboard to play them and process them differently. Got rid of some of the noise floor with this gate here, but due to it being recorded on my iPhone or my phone in an outdoor space, there was a lot of unwanted noise there, so just got rid of that as much as I could, as well as I could. Found the right placement for the EQ, boosted a little section here, which I'm going to say is where the main part. Yep. Put the chorus on there to give that spatial effect as well as modulation. And the stereo delay technique that I'm talking about, that Guy Gray spoke to me about, essentially does what a chorus does without modulation. So it puts an audio channel in a room due to the stereo delay, but it doesn't modulate and move the phase much. But it's a cool sound being a ceramic pot. And I've made the mid sections a lot louder just to balance it with the high end a little bit, and some more standard compression. And I'm going to say, see, as far as the layering goes, they're heavily panned, so they may blend well together. But see, no chorus, no gate, give that raw feeling to it in some sense. Here is some arpeggiated samples that I added. These were resampled from a synthesizer due to this session being communicated via online platforms. So, and both parties not having the same plugins, so they had to be they had to be rendered into audio for them to hear it. But you see the panning that I've done, quite slow panning that's moved, and the movement of it's out of phase, meaning that the left speaker is starting at a different point than the right speaker is, but the movement of them are the same. So it just gives a nice little, cool little washed out feeling. These are just sweeping. It's a very slow build, and pan starting all the way in the right, and for this second one starting all the way in the left, and then towards the climax of it they meet together. At the start. Very, very slow, progressive build. And both of these synths were done in the same plugin, just tweaked a little bit, made them sound slightly different, rendered them and panned them separately. Again, another audio file. Didn't do anything to it because all the processing was done up here. You see the sidechain compression, which isn't on right now, but when it was recorded it had been. Moving down to this resampled whoosh that HAITEKU boys put in. I adjusted slight things, just found perfect key center. It's a very vocal sounding, has a very humanoid sound to it. So I chose that range specifically, and with a little bit of room for movement towards the end. A very even pan. It's timed quite well with the song itself, and I did a short equation on determining the BPM over the bars and the rate at which this was playing, and found out how fast it needed to pan to be in time with the song. But I'll put a link to that in the bottom if you want to learn more about that technique. It's very helpful, and it saves a lot of CPU space just by simply panning and delaying things at the right rate rather than having a stereo delay that's set on every channel. Again, that fade to grey, which is a reverb and delay at once. Sidechain compression, and then it's interesting that I've chose to put the compressor here in the mix and not at the end, because after having it run through all these plugins here, I've compressed it onto the sidechain and then moved it into a frozen smear, which is a plugin that's designed to capture a sound. It freezes one piece of audio and extends it for an indefinite amount of time, which you choose as I've automated here. So as this sound comes in, you see it holds the sound. Just helps blend a little bit more than an EQ right at the end, just to control those the unwanted frequencies from the smear itself and the compression. Just little resonating frequencies, I suppose. For the vocal sample, this was resampled, so there isn't much evidence here as to what was done, which is unfortunate, and I can't remember off the top of my head because this mix was done a few weeks ago. Knob 1, fade to grey again, reverb, delay, compression, EQ, nothing over the top, very sensible. And some transitional effects right down the bottom here. We have this little rise. Which has a lot of reverb on it. And this reverb has a large space, very little diffusion, so it's got a big hiss on it because those high frequencies are traveling further with high density too, so the tail of it's a lot thicker with a noticeable decay time on it also. And this crash coming in, not too serious, and we reverse it. Bit of fun. This low end rumble with, again, just reverb, minimal diffusion, because I like the sound of that airy hiss coming through. It's not so much of a hiss in this, but definitely that airy sound. And I've compressed it and then compressed it again with a very, very heavy side chain. So as soon as it just happens once, and it gives the effect of breaking through something, I suppose. So that come through nicely, I believe. Operator, this is just a white noise oscillator that I've used, EQ'd where it needs to be EQ'd, and used a dual sweep filter technique to one high pass, one low pass, and you can move them as you wish to help modulate and evolve the sound of this white noise yourself, along with a stereo pan, an auto pan that is rising in amount and rate, which gives a very nice flutter effect. And a bit of sidechain compression, just for that pulse. That being, it is a 4-to-the-floor kick-driven song. And the same thing's been done here, but again, I've resampled it. And what do we have here? Oh yeah, more resampling again. It's a bit of a shame that I don't have the actual files here. This is it, actually. And you can see as far as the clip's deactivated, but it works cohesively with the track below. And it starts at the bottom, and you can see the EQ just kind of sweeps up, coming into the So this is a very short, sweet, fun mix. It was very quick considering when it got sent to me to have a look at. It was all complete entirely. I just mixed it a little bit differently to what they had and added my own little section towards the end. And I put a link to the original and my version and this version down the bottom, so go check it out. I'll highlight some of the techniques that I've spoken about as well down below and put links to that for more information. I'll put a link to my blog down the bottom. Go check that out. And yeah, till next time. Thanks for listening.